Today's episode, we have Cameron Thomas, SDR at Procurement Leaders, and he comes from us all the way from London.
Tune in to learn how Cameron achieved 171% of his quota as we dive deep into his cold calling strategy and his 5 avenues of dialing that will increase your connect rates by more than 60%. Your success is our success, so let's get started.
From the heart of Silicon Valley in beautiful San Francisco, California, welcome to the SDR Live podcast with Marcos and Andy.
Awesome. Well, glad to be back on another episode of the SDR Live. Today we have Cameron Thomas. Cameron, welcome to the show.
Hi there. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. We're super pumped to have you here today. And today's really all about the cold call, right? And you're the master at that. But for the folks that are unfamiliar, can you just start with a quick intro of yourself and then also the team that you work on and where you're from?
Yeah, sure. So I've been doing sales now for maybe 2.5 years. That's a mixture between recruitment and your standard SDR. I'm part of an organization called Procurement Leaders. We sell memberships to procurement functions within multinational businesses. And I sit in a team of 4 at the moment. But as of 2021, we want to expand that team by 50% odd. So, yeah.
That's crazy. And so this team that you're on, right? How many, SDR? I know it's a split, you said, between recruitment SDRs, but how big's the team?
The team is 4 people. So there's me and 2 others. Me and 4 others at the moment. Yeah.
That's exciting. And, what's really interesting here is, we're really trying to help SDRs, be successful. So I'm just curious, and I know you're a top performer, but, what's like the best quarter or month you've ever had from a quota standpoint?
The best quarter I've had, well, as this year goes, with the pandemic and everything going, this has probably been, as an SDR, my best, which is quite strange, right? But as far as sort of H1 performance goes, I was on 171%.
Wow.
And the quarter that's just gone, so Q2, I finished on 143% or 44%. It was something like that. But it's essentially left me with 29 or 30% of my target left to achieve for the annum.
Wow.
So it's been quite a kickstart for the year.
Yeah.
Sounds like a good spot to be in.
Yeah.
Well, there's a reason why you're crushing your quota, and today is all about the cold call. So we're really excited to get into your slides. But before that, one last question, which is, how's your quota based? Is it based off of meetings you set up? Is it opportunities? And if so, what's the number there?
So it's based on meeting introductions which then roll into a commercial opportunity. So that's what it is. What do you mean by numbers? Sorry.
So is that, 10 meeting introductions per month, 20?
Oh, right. Okay. So yeah, to be on target, it's 18 per month.
Okay.
Wow.
That's awesome. Well, I'm sure Andy's super curious, and our audience is too, on your strategy. So if you could share a screen and we could get into that, that'd be wonderful.
Perfect. So how I became the top SDR of H1 through cold call. Yeah, this is maybe more for a tutorial for maybe a younger audience. Maybe somebody starting off who's a bit unsure about cold calls. Personally, I don't like doing emails. I'm terrible at typing. I take forever. So this is my sweet spot. I quite like this quote. If anyone doesn't know, Henry Link is a psychologist who I studied at university with, and I feel like the quote, "We generate fears while we sit, we overcome them by action," resonates with me as a salesperson, because it's so easy to be put off from doing the tasks that are scary, but actually overcome those fears just by doing it. So that resonates me quite well, and that's sort of what I try and implement. So as sort of an overview of prospecting and my philosophy, I ask myself 3 questions during the day. How can I turn this phone call from being a cold call to a warm call, right? The other is being, am I being proactive, or am I going through the motions? I'll go into more detail about what exactly that means. And number 3, have I been treating that prospect as a peer and not a superior? And again, these are 3 really important elements that I feel like really make up having that good rapport with somebody, where it results in a decent commercial opportunity. So we'll go from there. I mean, first things first, when you look at making phone calls, it's so important to try and differentiate the fact that you are different from other salespeople. I feel like there's a lot of stigma that salespeople maybe just call through a list of 200 people, and what is special about that person, and what previous communications have you had with that person, right? So just a case and example, this is my Salesforce right here. So for this contact, I've blurred it out down there, but you can see the campaign history of, emails that have gone out to them, what they've done on our website. So you can see here, this person's actually filled out a form on our website, which is a CPO planning survey. I don't know what that is, but this person actually interacted with us. It's not the other way around.
Right.
I also see that last year he attended 2 of our events, our World's Procurement Award Ceremony and Congress. I know for a fact that's a week-long event. So this person's quite committed, right? Nobody takes a week out of their time to go to these events, and I know that these events aren't cheap. So this person seems quite invested in us, and that is all something that I can lead back into. So when I call up this person, I can lead off straight away by going, "Look, it was great to see that you attended our events. It was great to see that you recently filled out a form on our CPO planning survey. Funny that." And, it's the little extra tweak of calling them out of the blue with your usual standard script of why I'm calling you to, I see that we've been having connections previously. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Right. Go ahead.
Cool.
What it seems like is what you're trying to find is like some type of insight, right? I call it the nugget of insight, right? Like that one nugget of insight where you could potentially call somebody out on it. And, I don't like to make, I would say the majority of my meetings are set from cold calls, but at the end of the day, if I don't have to make calls, I don't want to. So kind of to ease my nervousness when I started is, I would do research, and that research yielded to confidence. And then when you're more confident, that comes up on the phone. So I'm curious, this is, more of like, inbound / people looking at the website, but I saw that you're looking even at LinkedIn connections and other connections as well. Is that true?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what you just said there is the exact same thing for me. Generally, I actually really dislike speaking to people. I get very nervous. I'm actually very, very shy. So I hate speaking to people who I've never met before, which is not a good trait to have. But in sales, I manage that by just finding anything that we've got in common. So again, like going on LinkedIn, I see that you're already, that you released a post about sustainability. That's fantastic. We're also doing something around sustainability. I see that you liked and shared something that, a colleague of yours posted. It's anything like that where it's just like, if you went to a party and you were making conversation with somebody, you'd find something that you got in common. And that's where you start off with. And that's literally how I position this. And it's, once you do that, you turn away from the usual spiel of, hi there, my name is Cameron Thomas from Procurement Leaders. Lovely to meet you. Blah, 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 blah. Usual spiel. It's like, look, I've been following you from a while. It's great to see all the interaction that you've had, such as this, that, and that. It automatically, whether they realize it or not, it makes it more friendly and more warm. And then you can, that's just like a board into the rapport that you can build with that person by establishing that relationship.
That's so powerful, because a lot of times, like, all of this information that you're gathering beforehand, the homework that you're doing, it serves as a pattern interrupt for like other people. Because if we just flip it, if we think about our prospect side, they probably get like 4 or 5 cold calls a day, depending on their title. And everyone probably starts off as like, hey, this is Andy calling from Inside View. How are you doing today? But instead you're taking a totally new approach that kind of throws them off their rocker a little bit, and be like, oh, who's this person calling me who already knows me? My question for you is, I also do this. However, some of a trap that I fall into is sometimes I can spend way too much time looking for like a specific connection. How do you like prevent yourself from doing that and like moving on when you can't find anything? Or just like, do you set a limit for yourself of like how much information I gather before I cold call them?
Yeah. So to answer that, I do 2 bullet points. So every contact that I have on my cadence or on my report that I'm going to be following up with, there'll be 2 things that I have written down about that person. It'll be 1 line. It's not big. And again, it will be something like, they filled out a survey during this time. They went to our event last year. They spoke with my colleague Josh, which was a huge thing that I used, because how the territories tend to work is that we alternate. So when I was given the UK and Ireland, I had a colleague Josh who worked it last year, and the angle that I went in with a lot of these people, and Josh is a really good guy, is that Josh referred me to connect with you since he's now moved to Chicago. Fun fact, he's now moved to Chicago. But, he referred me, specifically to reconnect with you, following from the really good conversations that he had last year. I know it didn't lead anywhere commercially, but, in light of the recent, interaction you've had, we've got some fantastic new insights or research that can add some value to what you're doing right now. That's just 2 things. The second thing, I didn't even go into much detail because I didn't even say what exactly the interaction was. I just said there was interaction. And if they push back, or if I feel like the person is very, very cold and the walls are up, then I might go in with that. But that's sort of how I stop myself. It's just literally 2 things that I can see straight away and leave it at that. And we'll work with that.
Okay, so 2 nuggets of insight. I love that.
And shout out to the Joshes of the world.
Yes, shout out Josh. I'm curious, Cameron, from like a metric standpoint, like, are you making more cold calls than your peers? Are you making less cold calls? How does that work?
Yeah, so actually that goes in nicely with the next slide. So, no words here. I like this because I didn't have to anything. So, cold call number breakdown. So, to make sense of this, let me start with the calls made today. You can see that you got 17, 28, 61, 30, 19, 5, 13, 53, and 15. Now, what that should actually say is number of contacts called, not calls made, contacts called. Very big difference. So, for that, it says that I've called 15 people, right? Now, when you look at then, there's the meeting scheduled for that week, 5. And then when you look at the right-hand side, I've spoken to 6 of them, I think it says. Yeah, 6. So I've called 15 people, spoke to 6, resulted in 5 meetings. Then when you look at the phone stats for June, when you look at the number of dials I've made, I'm not the highest, but I'm definitely not the lowest. About 840. So what does that mean?
You're a beast.
Yeah, I mean, 87% conversion rate.
So, but I mean, you know, all of this stuff is all about just getting through to them. And this is my question about falling through the motions. And I think it's one of the worst things that can happen when you're in an SDR role, because I'm guilty of it. When I first started, I used to do it all the time, just go through the motions. And what I mean by that is, so here's a quick example. This is what my cadence looks like. This is a contact that I've been trying to chase. It is day 15, and this is what the call session looks like. So this is just one of those contacts. Dial, 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 dial. Try dialing 5 times. 2 of them was a double tap. 3 of them was just a completely different number. Could have been switchboard, could have been a landline, could have been a call number, could have been anything. And that's all is my point. So, you know, you're not going through the motions. For me is you got a list of 200 people and you call one, they don't answer, you move on to the next one. You call one, they don't answer, and you move on. By the end of the day, you could probably work through that 200 very easily. So you can say to yourself, I have called 200 people, but you've called them once. And when the ratio and the statistics are that if you double tap, you are 60% more likely to actually get through to that person. You're doing yourself a disservice by not calling them one more time. And you're doing yourself a bigger disservice when you're not trying every possible number that you've got at your disposal. Mm-hmm. So, you know, mobile numbers, it's the best thing because we're all working from home, right? So your mobile numbers, you've got personal, you've got work, you've got office numbers, you've got landlines, phone numbers, home numbers, switchboard. I've always been very skeptical about switchboards because I hate talking to the switchboard person, really, really hate it. But when they transfer your call, it doesn't come up as your number. It comes up as the switchboard numbers. So you've tried calling them, say, 4 times. They've rejected or they couldn't answer, whatever. Then they see switchboard number calling. It's a different number. Their reaction is, oh, okay, maybe this is urgent. Do you still see what I mean?
Yeah.
Quite a lot of my success has been through the switchboard because I've tried every number, couldn't get through. Last resort, switchboard. Then then they answer. So, and then the last one is drunk dialing. In case nobody knows what drunk dialing is, it's one of my favorites for when I think I've got the wrong number wrong mobile number for the actual contact. So this means that you need to call into the person's team, so the prospect's team. So for example, my target is a chief procurement officer. And if I don't have their mobile and I don't have their landline and I don't have anything, I will call into their team, say a category manager, so maybe 2 or 3 down, and I will deliver my pitch as if I'm speaking to the CPO. Sounds weird, but I'll almost start the conversation like we're already good mates. Like, hi there, Dave. Fantastic to speak to you again. Just wanted to follow up from when we spoke last week about this, that. Category manager, who's way down the pipeline, goes, really sorry, but you got the wrong number. That's my boss's boss's boss. Oh my God, I'm so sorry. You play the fool a little bit and you go, oh my God, this is so embarrassing. I think I took the wrong number down. Ha 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 ha. Do you mind if you patch me through to Dave, or by any chance do you have the extension number? I feel really embarrassed by this. I've already sent him across an email. We were supposed to have a meeting today.
Oh my gosh, this is genius.
It sounds really elaborate, and I'm not saying this is a silver bullet. It's not going to work for everybody. You know, some people are just going to have their walls up, and, you know, GDPR is such a big thing, and they will just, you know, swat you away. 100% that will happen, but there is always a chance that you're going to get somebody who is, you know, having a slow day, you know, understands that, oh, this guy's just trying to get through and have that meeting. Honest mistake to write down the wrong last 2 digits for the extension number. I'll give him my boss's boss extension number. So that's drunk dialing. But the point is that you're trying every single avenue to get through to that person before moving on to the next. So wow. When you look at some of the other statistics, there were people that were calling, you know, 60 contacts a day, and that's great, but they got one meeting because they're not actually trying to get in with them. They're just calling them, moving on, calling them, moving on.
Wow. So I have a question that's so interesting. So this idea of double tap, for any of the audience that doesn't know, I wasn't familiar, but it's this idea of calling, like you call them and then they don't answer, and then you call them like right after.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's that. And then, sorry, go ahead.
No, sorry. I was just going to say, yeah, that's it. You know, you try calling, they don't answer, and then you just call them back straight away.
I've actually never done that before. Yeah, I've never done that before. Andy, have you?
Yes, I have. I have that. I have heard that it increases conversion rates. However, sometimes I feel bad, especially through COVID. Maybe this is on my something I need to work through. Is I feel guilty that like now I'm like bothering them. Like if I'm hitting them twice up, it's like this is super urgent. But now I realize I should be doing that because it is really urgent. They need to buy our product.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, and that's sort of nice. Sorry.
But first off, I want to say like I'm blown away because like not only are you double tapping, you're hitting them from all channels, like 5 channels, like you said. I'm curious. Like I'm definitely going to take this into like and bring it into my workflow because like your conversion rate speaks for itself. But I'm curious, have you ever gotten someone who's like pissed off or mad that like, hey, I just got 2 calls on my cell phone, 2 calls on my landline, and then another call from my switchboard guy? Like,
yeah.
Like, I'm curious to hear if you have any like funny stories or like how do you navigate through those conversations of, hey man, are you blowing up my phone?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think the thing is with sales is, you know, rightly so, you know, it's an awkward time with COVID because you don't want to piss people off, right? And this is a time where certain industries are firefighting and they've got so many things ongoing and they're probably getting 1 million phone calls a day. Yeah, I get that. But at the same time, I know that my product can help them, you know? And Marcus, I think when I was sort of explaining this slide to you, I think I made a point of, you know, a doctor would try every single number to get through to you if they had to tell you something about an examination you had, you know? Like,
yeah, that's a good point.
You know that your product is going to help them. If you know, then there should be absolutely no guilt. And, you know, I'm very confident that business, you know, this prospect, because I'm currently, you know, my organization is supporting the biggest FTSE 100 blue chip size companies in the world. So, you know, I would fail to understand what they're doing differently out of a collective network of 900 of their peers. You know what I mean? Like, I get that they're unique, but it's not comparable to 900 versions of it. So, yeah, I feel, you know, understandably, but you shouldn't feel guilty. And the second point is, yeah, there have been a few people who got very pissed off at it. And the best way to sort of diffuse it is by, so I tend to play a bit silly again. I go, oh God, I'm so sorry. The first time I tried calling through, there wasn't even a dial. So I thought it wasn't connecting. Sorry.
I love that.
The second one is, I hung up too soon, and I wanted just to very quickly leave you a voice message just so you was calling. Simple. If somebody still gets annoyed at that, then you got to wonder what's going on over at their end.
Right.
Understandably, there's always something that could really, really upset somebody on the other side, especially with COVID. So completely get that. But, if somebody is unjustly or irrationally angry at you for, trying to get through to you, and you've got something that could really help, then, I got to question whether it's actually going to be a bit of a time waster, speaking to that person. So, yeah.
Because it wouldn't be a prospect that you would want to speak to anyways, if they're already getting mad and pissed off when you're just trying to start a conversation.
Well, it's just, is it actually going to lead to anything commercial? Like,
exactly.
We could probably show them all the value in the world, but it seems like they're just so angry. They don't want to hear anything else. Yeah, right. Yeah. So, yeah, but
I had a question before, we move on. So I know you're only reaching out to a few prospects a day, and it seems like you're blowing them up. Are you doing this every day? Like you're blowing them up every day, like double tap and landlines and, reaching out to other people. And you're just like honing on those prospects, or do you give them some time? You give them some time. Okay.
Yeah. So I work with a cadence that, so firstly, the only effective way to do this is to build out your pipeline. You need to have at least 200 contacts ready for you to call through. So that by the time you do get to the bottom, and you're starting from the top again, it's already been like 4 or 5 days. Whatever you do not do this to the same person every day, every week of the month. 100%, that is how you piss somebody off.
Exactly.
That's just, that's how you become the most hated salesperson. So yeah, no, don't do that. But yeah, the main thing is you got to have enough people for it to work. So that by the time, as I mentioned, when you get to the top and you're calling this person again, it's already been, a week, and then you can all over again, or it's been 3 days or 4 days, but it's some time again. And it might be a different time during the day. So, it might be in the morning, it might be in the afternoon, but it's different. It's not a pattern. So yeah. Make sure
is there a specific time that you usually call, or like a time zone that you think has been more effective for you?
Yeah, I would always recommend the morning. The earlier, the better. And I think definitely at the start of lockdown, I was seeing a lot of people who had the kids home, for example, because, the schools were shut down. And so a lot of people who had their kids home were getting up way earlier to get some work done before sitting down with the kids, and then, pushing them off somewhere and then getting back to work. So, I was probably starting maybe 7:45, 8 o'clock, and then just doing that for an hour where it's just like, bam, 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 bam. And then it's maybe a little more strategic, going into the emails, networking, building up pipeline again, that sort of thing. So always replenishing. You've always got to replenish. But yeah, the more I would suggest, because it's before they go into their meetings. You gotta remember that. So mid-afternoon they've got guaranteed calls back to back. End of the day would also be a good one, because then they'll be finishing off. But then you got to remember whether they would be sitting down for dinner, and do they really want to speak to you now, or whether they got their kids or whatever. But I always think the morning is a safe bet.
Mm.
Start, calling through all those people really, really quickly, as fast as you can.
Awesome. And how much time do you spend calling per day?
I'd say 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon.
Wow.
So
the rest is networking. It's LinkedIn stuff. It's finding new companies that are out of our scope and building those out. So it's because, again, like a huge important part is that you've always got new people coming in, because you don't want to start recycling the same people.
Yeah.
Because they'll just know you. They'll recognize your number. They'll recognize your emails, and some people just never get back to you. And you don't want to keep chasing those same people. So that's really.
So I'm curious, do you have any, scripts for the audience, or, any examples that you can provide them?
I sure do. If we move on. I quite like this. So this is so before we get into the scripting, I feel like this is a trap for a lot of SDRs, and it's certainly something that I'm guilty of. And the cartoon paints a really good picture. And you got the prospect on a pedestal and everybody's sort of holding him up. And it's just it's a toxic relationship. You should never, ever, 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 ever do that to anybody. And, for me, particularly people in my team, they're a lot more junior than I am. And I've been trying to, get them up to speed and get them up to a more mature level. And for me, whenever I hear them on the phone, when I first started, it was, "Hi there, sorry for calling you, but I just wanted to blah, 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 blah." And then they would stop their stuff, they're apologizing to calling through. And again, it was almost, Andy, to your point that you made earlier on about, feeling bad. Mm-hmm. It's the wrong attitude to have. And you should never apologize, because, we'll get into it in a little bit, but as far as sort of objections go, as soon as you apologize, you've given that person a reason to say, well, yeah, you are in the wrong. And, don't quote me, you apologize, so you know that you're in the wrong. So I'm going to kick you off the phone now. Goodbye.
I love that.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's that obviously goes without saying, if you call somebody and they're in the hospital or they've got the kids screaming in the back because they're driving home, that's probably a good time to say, "I'm sorry, I'll call back later." Yeah, that's understandable. But if you know that you've called them at a good time when it's quiet, never start by apologizing. It's just all wrong, and it sets the wrong tone. And going back to the first slide, when we talk about turning a call from cold to warm, that really sets the tone. And as soon as you apologize, you're starting off on a negative, and that person's gonna understand that. And again, if they're busy, they're just gonna kick you off the phone. So be assertive, because they've been assertive to get to the top, right? They've been, fighting their way to get to that executive level. If you show that same sort of mettle, that would resonate, and 100% they will respect you for that. So yeah, just wanted to say that, maybe for more for you, maybe your junior audience. But yeah, as far as scripting goes, I think scripts need to be as simple as possible. So this is just like a really brief example of the sort of thing that I would use. It's got barely any detail on, but it's relevant and it's punchy. And so and the pitch structure is something that I hold as extremely reliable for structurizing a good pitch. So, you start off by, how's your day? You're just opening up the conversation. You don't even need to ask them how their day was. And your personalization is, as we mentioned at the very beginning, it's turning the call from cold to warm. I saw you at our event in January after you spoke to my colleague last year, etc., etc. You then move on to the main part, and you said, like, look, following from that, we've been speaking with 900 of your peers who are exploring how they could be adapting their functions and adjusting to the new norm during COVID-19. And then, sorry, I've actually got the window for this, so I can't actually read it. I've got the window for Zoom in the way. Sorry.
No problem.
Exploring how their functions are adapting to the new norm and during a post-COVID phase, and what this means for the long-term strategies. Again, that can mean anything, but the juicy is mentioning their industry peers, okay, not competitors. And I mentioned that below for a good reason. So particularly as we saw X, Y, and Z, trying to understand how they are enabling data innovation to build a more robust supply chain and reduce risk towards their suppliers' financial solvency. Now, if I was speaking to a CPO, a Chief Procurement Officer, from a manufacturing sector who, because of COVID, there's not so much hands-on work, it's becoming more digital, that would pique their interest straight away, 100%. They would be interested to know more, because I'm setting the scene about what we've been doing and what's sort of going on. That is, they're going to know straight away. But then I talk about something that is very, very relevant as a topic that is backtracked towards their competitors. And I don't use the words competitors for this reason. So, given that these are your industry peers, does this resonate with you? So I don't use competitors because I feel like it's too salesy. I feel like by saying competitors, they know you're just trying to get their attention, and you just sort of shoot yourself in the foot. Whereas industry peers, like, of course, this is going to resonate with an industry peer because this is affecting the industry, not the function as a whole, because it's going to be different in pharmaceuticals in comparison to automotive, for example, right? And this isn't going to be the same for everybody. This is just a very bare basic script. But the point is, and this is the big point, is, does this resonate with you? It's asking the question. And that then opens up a dialogue. And when you've got that, you can then go into more depth around, why that resonates, what's going on with your business, and then feed what you guys are already doing. If it's a no, that's fine. Help me understand what is resonating. What exactly are you doing that's different? And you could be pleasantly surprised in how that, again, links into your own knowledge. Now, this does mean that you have to be very, very, very good at your product. You need to know your market. You need to know the industry. And you need to know, where exactly your company and what you have to offer will fit. Because if you don't know the industry or the function or whatever that you're penetrating with this stuff, you're just going to come off as somebody who's winging it. And the reason why, it's so sort of skeletal, like whoops, how do I go back?
Left button. Oh,
back button. Yeah. Sorry. So, the reason why it's so skeletal is because, it's there for you to build the knowledge around. I know that again, because I know that data innovation isn't going to be interesting to pharmaceuticals. I know that, but it's going to be very interesting to the automotive. So I would change that. I would change it to something like managing the surge in demand, PPE, for example. That's going to be really something that hits well with a pharmaceutical business rather than automotive. So yeah, that's how I structure it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
it does.
Definitely it does. And this is a good skeleton, but I'm curious because a lot of times you have objections that pop up. That's probably one of the more important parts. So I'm curious, from your perspective, what are some common objections you get and kind of how do you combat those?
Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of brings me nicely to the next slide. So we finally made it. Now you would notice that this is actually a lot bulkier than the script. And there is a very good reason. So I feel like to have a good rapport with somebody, there needs to be an objection. And actually, the meetings I schedule and the ones that sort of are the yes man on the phone, they go, yep. No, I'd love to hear about membership. Yep. Sounds great. Yep. Book it whenever time. Those are the ones that I'm most concerned about. And I would still book it, but I'd be keeping a very close eye on that person. The people who object, I don't think of as they disagree. It's just, there's just a difference in opinion. We agree to disagree. So let me explain why. And, this is something, this is a practice that I was taught by, somebody when I was, one of my old managers when I was doing recruitment. It's keeping track of every single objection. And this isn't, I'm not saying for anybody to copy and paste this, please don't. This is something that's only hitting my company. But what I would do, for example, is that, if I'm on the phone to somebody and they throw an objection my way, I would have this ready way before my script. Between us and obviously the audience, I don't really use my script. I've got it memorized in my head. It's a skeletal structure. It's easy to remember. Your objections needs to be a lot more detailed. And as I said, it's a lot bulkier, because that is literally the thing that's going to save you to have that positive discussion and keep the rapport going, where they see you as somebody who is, transparent, who's confident, who has the know-how, who knows actually what they're talking about. But you need to have that written down, and you need to be prepared. And every time you hear something new, you add it. You add it to that graph, and you write the response that you would give, and you would read it word to word. And, if it makes sense, and if you're unsure, call your manager, double check with them, because, especially with COVID at the moment, there was so many objections being thrown left, right, and center about, uncertainty this, no budget that. Now we got the summer holidays coming up. I've only got 2 days left. Let's catch up in September. All of these are easy to overcome if you have it prepared and written down, and you've got it front of mind. But yeah, that comes down to your preparation. It's actually taking note of what people say when they throw up the objection. And again, I'm not saying it's going to work for everybody. Some people are going to say, nah, F off, no matter what you say, but it's giving yourself the best possible chance.
Okay, perfect. Well, there's a reason why you're crushing 171% quota. The insights from your script to objection handling to, your strategies on double tap and drunk dials. Man, it's amazing. And I'm going to start incorporating that. So now it's time to put you real quick on the hot seat. So first question, do you love to win or do you hate to lose?
I hate to lose. Really, really hate to lose. I get weirdly competitive, and I normally find like a nemesis in the office. And if I lose to them, I get really, really upset and very stroppy. And then I just need to beat them the next month. So it hasn't happened yet, but I know one day it will.
I totally get that. The competition drives that sort of motivation that allows you to just make each other better. And second question, what would you say is the biggest mistake you've made as an SDR, and some advice to prevent that?
Biggest mistake would be not speaking to my manager and getting advice from other people. I feel like when you first start, for me, I was just thrown in the deep end. I was just told to call this list of 200 people, and that was it. And that was in recruitment, so it's a whole different game. But it's sales nonetheless, and I didn't know a bloody thing. And it was only when I started speaking to my colleagues and speaking to my manager and speaking to my director about hints and tips and advice and what I'm struggling with and what they do about it, or what they would do about it, did that begin to resonate. And that's when I began to saw improvements. So that's the biggest thing.
Wow. I found myself in a similar boat when I started off. It was, I don't know, it's like you kind of have to check your ego out the door, especially being in sales, because a lot of it is a team sport, right? And so just to kind of wrap it up here, where can people follow you? And is that on LinkedIn, or what's the best platform to reach you at?
It'll probably be LinkedIn. I think it's the only social media thing I've got, which is sad, but there you go.
All right, reach out to Cameron on LinkedIn, and he'll give you some cold calling advice. Heck, maybe some of the SDRs will cold call you now. Give you a dose of your own medicine, but hopefully they share some of those great insights. And so it's a pleasure speaking with you. Can't wait to get some wins from our audience and hopefully share those with you, but it was invaluable today.
Thank you so much, Cameron.
No, cheers. Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank you for listening to the SDR Live podcast. If you like this episode, please share, comment, and subscribe. Make sure you tune in next week and have a fantastic week.